just clearing out the drive pipes was a relatively inexpensive
Yeah,
mitigation.
it could be
Right,
done
right.
in-house with just garden tools and an afternoon of hard work, but that's obviously not anything that someone would want to do, I would imagine. So, yeah.
Did you look at dry wells as well in some of the areas that could be used?
We did not. That's something, obviously, it's a very effective measure for preventing standing water, but we figured that, especially in the northeast part of the neighborhood, there's utilities and things around, so we didn't really want to think about digging too deep into the ground. We don't really know what's over there in terms of that. On the corners where the rain gardens that we had, could you go back to that slide? I'm still with all of the pink boxes on the map. The locations where all of the rain gardens that we proposed could also be used for that as well. They essentially are that same type of dry well, is just you're filling it in with some retention soil and putting plants on top of it. So it does the same, it has the same effect, but again, we don't really have any information about what's down there and how far we can work with, how deep you can go, what the type of public right of way is. I know it's 30 feet from the ground of the road, but obviously you're getting into people's yards and stuff like that at that point. So.
Any other comments or questions? Any,
You don't have, do you have any idea how, excuse me, how lengthy of a period after major rainfalls the 24-inch pipe is running at capacity?
When we met with Mark, he told us that during the rainfall events, it's obviously very full. The fact that the dry pipes are so clogged means that the water actually stays in that part of the neighborhood a lot longer than it would if the dry pipes were clear and was able to move through the network. We don't know for sure how long the period of time where the standing water is present after a rainfall event. I think with all of these mitigation efforts, it would very significantly decrease that, but I can't imagine that standing water would be occurring more than 24 hours past a really intense rainfall event. Obviously that's, I'm throwing out a number, but I can't imagine that it would be more than a day after the end of the rainfall event.
So you're thinking we have, if several of these things were done, you're thinking that 24-inch pipe has the capacity to drain that area in a 24-hour period? If we could get the water to the pipe?
Yes, I do think so. I think that the pipe itself is only over capacity, or it's only at capacity during rainfall events. I think that after the fact, once water is slowly draining through it, it's not at capacity, but it's during the rainfall event that when the pipe is so full that it's not physically able to move the water out of that neighborhood quick enough, that's when the backup starts to occur. And obviously the quicker you can get water to it, the quicker it's going to move downstream. So obviously, like I mentioned earlier, standing water is not going to be completely gone until the pipe itself is made larger or there's additional pipes put in place to carry that water separately. The cities are kind of limited by that. The fact that the pipe itself is at capacity already during rainfall events. Obviously all of our mitigation efforts would help take a lot of that water that would be going into the pipes and hold it and detain it during the rainfall event and then drain it back into the system later. But yeah, the pipe itself is limiting for the project.
So I'm a little bit confused. So I think what I heard you say is if we open up the dry pipes, that the water is going to flow more quickly so that it's out of the area. But I think I'm also hearing you say, then when it gets to that 24-inch pipe, especially if it's a significant rain event, then it's still going to take, it's going to take a while to get that to go through there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. Yeah, like I mentioned, the fact that the pipe is already at capacity means there's really not a lot that we can work with in terms of getting more water downstream faster. It's more about the detaining it upstream and waiting and allowing that pipe to clear out and work as quickly as it can the whole time, and then basically releasing that water once the standing water in the ground is already gotten back into the system.
And I don't know that much about it, but I'm just wondering if we'd be creating an additional problem by clearing out those pipes, because at some point, is there going to be the water back up someplace else from where it's at right now?
There is. I think a lot of the standing water is caused by the fact that the dry pipes are clogged. So clearing those out would obviously keep water moving quicker through the network. But again, it can only move so quickly. And that's where the rain gardens and the drainage tiles and things like that come in.
But the dry pipes, if the dry pipes were cleaned, it's not gonna get the water maybe off in 12 hours, but it's gonna prevent water from standing there for 2 or 3 days, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that where it's gonna help us?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, I think when we first walked around for our second site visit, we noticed that more than half or 3/4 of the dry pipes are either halfway clogged or all the way clogged, and that just by itself is going to cause a lot of localized flooding. Even if this network itself is moving water quickly enough through it, where the pipe is net capacity, just because the water never actually reaches the pipe, a lot of it ends up just standing.
Since I'm not familiar with it, is this the only neighborhood, this area that you're talking about that feeds into that 24-inch pipe?
It's that northeast part of the neighborhood, and I think there is a little bit of the northwest or the northern part of the town that's west of State Street that also drains into it. But to our knowledge, when Mark was showing us around, he said that this northeast neighborhood is the real contributor.
That's where it pools. But
Yes.
so there is water coming down from those other areas too. I
Yeah.
guess the reason I was asking that is, from what I've been involved with in the past, if you can do what you've shown, the rain gardens, the retention basins,
Mhm.
dry wells, like I said, or even making it so the rain and overflow percolates down into the soil quicker than it reduces the runoff.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you had, because there's surfactants that can be used to help permeate the soil better.
Mhm.
So there's some other things that could be done to help instead of it just running off, being able to percolate down into folks' yards or whatever.
Yeah, we are not familiar with what level the water table is in this area. The fact that Iowa has very hard packed like clay soils on the ground or like the topsoil means that infiltration, to get engineering on you, there's a coefficient of infiltration for soils, and it basically means how much, if you have 1 inch of rainfall on the soil, how much actually goes into the ground and how much of it runs off. And the coefficient for this area is 0.8, which means that only 20% of the water that actually falls, it goes into the ground, and then 80% of that flows over the land. Also, during our design, to be conservative, we assumed that 100% of the water that falls runs off instead of 80%. So all of our designs are very conservative in the fact that we are assuming the amount of water that's moving through the system is actually more than it would be normally for
So the
experience.
things that you can do to stop with the rain gardens and whatever like that and allow it to do more infiltration.
Yeah, infiltration is obviously a very important way of getting water off of the ground level, but for us, infiltration can only do so much, especially here. So we focus more of our efforts on detaining the water and keeping it moving through the system as quickly as possible.
For this, you didn't have any stats on where we are in water table wise up here?
No, we are not entirely sure what that is. I don't think that that would be an issue for any of the rain gardens or detention basins like that, just because Iowa's very flat, so I don't think that there's not a lot of bodies of water around to really raise the water table. So I think that's not really something that Prairie City should be concerned about. Again, I'm not entirely sure, so it's something to look into, but.
I think we have some water table problems in parts of town. I
Okay.
think.
Sure.
Well, at what level is the water table a problem for what you're talking about here?
Well, if the water table reaches above the bottom of the retention zone, that basically means that the amount of, or like the volume of here, once it starts filling up, the volume in here is compromised, so you're losing that.
What are you talking about there?
This is an arbitrary schematic of a rain garden, but let's say the water table is where this dotted line is. That's okay because the water table is already below where the water would be filling in here. But if the water table is up here, that means that this bottom half of the rain garden isn't actually going to hold any water. 'Cause
But in
there's already
general,
water.
those rain gardens are gonna be how deep?
It's up to you guys.
That retention area.
The retention area, commonly it's maybe 6 feet deep. That's pretty significant. Obviously, not all of them are going to be that deep. It depends. The more of them that you have, the less deep you have to go in each one because you have more volume within all of them.
At 6 feet, you would have water table problems, certainly during high rainfall.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be definitely too deep. I think for this area, somewhere between 3 and 4 feet, I think would be ideal.
Would you be providing us with a copy of your presentation?
Yes, yeah, I have all of our drawing files, I have all of our
Yeah,
reports.
Professor Odgaard, who oversaw the faculty member who oversaw the group, couldn't be here today, but he said we would get electronic version, which will get out to everybody. And then at least one hard copy version, I think, for the city to have as well. Well, we probably need to keep moving on here for the other group to start. Any final questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.